Democratic Congressman Jan Schenkowski. She serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee. Also with us, the president of the SEIU, Andy Stern, his group helping to organize those protests at Goldman Sachs. Yesterday, along as well, Jonathan Capehart. Good morning, Jonathan, from the Washington Post.
Good morning.
Representative Schenkowski, I'll begin with you. So many people in this country feel utterly powerless. They feel like literally the banks control the government gives the banks money, and the banks do whatever they want with it, which makes record bonuses for them and leaves no lending and no investment in this country. How do people regain their power?
Well, I penned a letter to Goldman Sachs that they ought to return the $12.9 billion that they got from AIG, which is in total taxpayer money. And what it has translated into is these huge bonuses, a $21 billion bonus package for their top executives.
My sense is that everybody gets it and honestly feels like nobody's doing anything about it. We haven't had a hearing. We're not seeing any meaningful bank reform. There's no clawbacks from the bank CEOs who are taking all this money, using taxpayer money. So there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, and there's very little action. How do we change that?
Well, I certainly agree that we have to start laying down demands on these huge companies that are, too big to fail. I think that, first of all, that whole premise is bad, that they ought to be, we ought to either split them up or reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act that doesn't allow them to get into every business and the casino that you've been talking about. Sure. And so I think that people are so angry, and I completely understand it, that we must respond substantively to their concerns.
Andy Stern, you know how angry people are, and yet, honestly, 100 people is not that many people at the gates of Goldman Sachs, and as angry as and as much as shameful and abundant as the rhetoric may be, the action from Washington, D.C. and our politicians to actually stop the theft, claw back the money, and restore investment and lending in this country is virtually non-existent. Are we basically just talking in the wind here?
Well, I think we've certainly seen a lot more talk than action. And, I appreciate what you said about the Fed chairman. I mean, there are people in positions of power that can still do something. And I think it's impossible for the president to talk about a jobs summit when you understand, like the Fed chairman say, that many of the jobs come from small businesses. We are not lending to small businesses, and instead people like Goldman Sachs are taking $23 billion and recirculating it amongst the wealthy. And that's just not going to work. This casino economy needs to end, and we need to share the wealth a little bit better.
But with all due respect, Andy, if I'm a bank and the government makes it far more profitable for me to go speculating in a dark market or in a crooked insurance market, why on earth am I going to go through the trouble of going into lending to small businesses, which is a low-margin, aggravating business?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. We have the absolute wrong incentives that we've put in place. We said that we were going to fix the economy, and we fixed it all right. We fixed it so that people that have a lot of money can borrow at a zero coupon rate from the Treasury and make money much more easier than filling out those forms, looking at credit worthiness of small businesses. But that's not how we're going to fix the economy, and we should not count on the bankers or Goldman Sachs who care more about their company than our country. And it's time that our elected officials and people just say, enough is enough. This is nuts.
Yeah, Jonathan Capehart, again, you hear Andy Stern, I could put George Soros in front of you. Bill Gates was talking about it the other day. Paul Volcker talks about it. There are lists and lists of very respected individuals, from libertarians to neocons to PETA, to, again, unions and non-finance billionaires that will all say the same thing we're talking about. But quite honestly, I don't get the sense that anybody in Washington cares, particularly the White House. Like I said, is this just a bunch of people talking in the wind?
Is that a question for me or
yes,
Mr. Stern?
That's a question for you, Jonathan.
I think the administration cares, but I think, folks like Congresswoman Schenkowski and other members on the Hill need to hear from the 100 people who are protesting outside Goldman Sachs, need to take that protest into the halls of the Capitol, but they also have to make their complaints and their concerns more specific. If the folks who are protesting want Glass-Steagall reinstated, then they have to say that. They have to get very specific about what they want. And the problem is, as I said last week, these issues are so complicated and so, I mean, you know them very, very well. But I guarantee you that 99% of the American people don't understand derivatives and all the other things that allowed what you call, and what is accurately called, a theft from the American people to happen. So until folks can get more specific about what they want and tell the members of Congress and the White House, I don't see how there be any pressure on anybody to do anything of substance.
Yeah, Representative Schakowsky, how do we deal? Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, there's enormous pressure, because if this is going to be a jobless recovery, then I think the Democrats understand, if nothing else, that politically that's a very dangerous place for us to be. And so I think we're hearing it loud and clear. We had a caucus yesterday on jobs. We had a summit on jobs a couple of weeks ago, where we had experts come in and talk to us. So I think we're understanding it very clearly, and I think you will see action certainly before the 2010 election. Right. We have to do it.
I understand, and I'll wrap this up. But if you allow the banks, if I'm a bank and I make less money lending than I do gambling in the swaps market, I'm not going to lend any money. And so if the taxpayers giving these banks all this money and they're just using it in the casino market or in the hedge fund market, they're never going to lend that money as long as they can pay off Congress to legalize swaps gambling in secret, you know? It's a human nature.
And when you've got small businesses that are using their credit cards and paying those high interest rates in order to just keep their businesses going, we're in a very bad situation that we've got to deal with.
Or honestly, the four of us just should open a big bank and everybody can go to hell. I'm telling you, it works like a charm. A pleasure to have the conversation, you guys. Thank you so much.